The Galactic Council chamber had been built to impress. Representatives from 47 different species sat in carefully arranged tiers, each delegation positioned according to ancient protocols of diplomatic precedence. The vast domed ceiling displayed a slowly rotating map of known space, with trade routes and territorial boundaries marked in different colors. Today, however, the usual atmosphere of dignified discourse was replaced by barely controlled panic. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian hegemony stood at the central podium, his once proud bearing now bent with exhaustion and defeat. His delegation, which 3 months ago had commanded the respect and fear of every species present, now sat isolated and ignored in their assigned seats. Honored representatives, Veltar began, his voice barely carrying across the chamber. I come before you today to warn of a threat that endangers every civilized species in the galaxy. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. The hegemony asking for help was unprecedented in galactic history. The human species, which we now recognize was a grave miscalculation on our part, has demonstrated a capacity for warfare that defies all known conventions of interstellar conflict. Representative Yixtal of the Botanical Coalition leaned forward in her seat.
Ambassador Veltar, are you seriously suggesting that a single species poses a threat to galactic civilization?
I am stating it as fact, Veltar replied.
In the span of 4 months, the humans have reduced the hegemony from the dominant power in this sector to this. He activated a holographic display showing the current state of hegemony space. What had once been a vast territory marked in the imperial purple of Zephyrian control was now a patchwork of gray zones indicating destroyed infrastructure, red zones marking active combat, and small pockets of purple showing the few remaining functional hegemony worlds. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the implications. The Zephyrian hegemony had ruled this sector for over 3,000 years. Their military might was legendary. Their technology was advanced beyond most species' comprehension. If they could be reduced to this state, how? Asked the representative from the Mechanic Collective. Our intelligence indicates the humans are a young species with limited resources. Veltar's laugh was bitter. That was our mistake as well. We measured their ships and found them small. We counted their weapons and found them few. We analyzed their technology and found it primitive. What we failed to measure was their will. He paused, gathering himself before continuing. The humans do not fight wars the way we understand them. They do not seek conquest or territory or resources. They fight to eliminate threats permanently. When they went to war with us, their goal was not to defeat the hegemony but to ensure the hegemony could never threaten them again. Surely you exaggerate, protested the Crystalline Empire's delegate. No species wages total war in the modern era. The economic costs alone. The humans have turned their entire civilization into a weapon, Veltar interrupted. Every factory, every shipyard, every research facility dedicated to a single purpose. They built vessels that exist only to destroy, not to explore or trade or colonize. They developed weapons designed purely for extermination, with no consideration for capture or occupation. On the display, tactical footage began playing. Human dreadnoughts materialized from hyperspace and opened fire without warning or communication. Hegemony worlds burned under bombardment that lasted hours. Entire fleets vanished in nuclear fire. They ignore every convention of civilized warfare, Veltar continued. They do not take prisoners. They do not spare civilian targets. They do not seek to minimize casualties. They simply destroy everything in their path until resistance becomes impossible. Representative Korth of the Trading Consortium spoke up. What do you want from this council, Ambassador? The hegemony has always claimed to need no assistance from lesser species. Veltar's shoulders sagged. I want you to understand what you are dealing with. The humans are not like us. They are not like any species we have encountered. When cornered, they do not submit or flee or negotiate. They become something else entirely. What do you mean? I mean they become war itself. Pure, focused, unlimited destruction directed at a single goal. They will sacrifice anything, pay any price, accept any casualty to achieve victory. The chamber erupted in debate as delegates argued among themselves. Some dismissed Veltar's warnings as the desperate exaggerations of a defeated enemy. Others pointed out that the evidence was difficult to ignore. The mighty hegemony had indeed been brought to its knees in an impossibly short time. The debate was interrupted by an announcement from the chamber's communications center. Honored delegates, we are receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation Navy. A hush fell over the chamber as the main display activated. Admiral Chen appeared standing on the bridge of her flagship. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency. She wore a simple black uniform with minimal decorations, but her presence commanded immediate attention. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," Chen began, her voice carrying clearly across the chamber. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking on behalf of the Terran Federation. We understand that our recent conflict with the Zephyrian hegemony has raised concerns throughout the galactic community." Representative Yixtal activated her speaking device. "Admiral Chen, this council would appreciate an explanation for the unprecedented level of destruction your forces have caused." Chen's expression remained neutral. "The explanation is simple. The hegemony issued an ultimatum demanding our submission or threatening our extinction. They demonstrated their commitment to that threat by murdering 2 million of our citizens. We responded appropriately." "Appropriately?" The crystalline delegate's voice rose in disbelief. "You have destroyed entire worlds." "We have eliminated a threat to human survival," Chen corrected. "The hegemony spent millennia convincing the galaxy that resistance to their demands was futile. We have demonstrated that this is not true." Veltar stepped forward at his podium. "Admiral, the hegemony formally requests an immediate ceasefire. We are prepared to discuss reparations for any harm caused to your people." Chen's gaze shifted to the hegemony delegation. "Ambassador Veltar, the ceasefire will begin when the last hegemony military vessel has been destroyed or surrendered unconditionally. Not before. You cannot be serious. The hegemony has millions of civilian populations that depend on our protection. Those populations will be safer without that protection," Chen replied coldly. "The hegemony's idea of protection seems to involve threatening weaker species with extinction. We are eliminating that threat permanently." Representative Korth leaned forward. "Admiral Chen, surely the Federation understands the destabilizing effect this conflict is having on galactic civilization. Trade routes are disrupted, communication networks are failing, entire sectors are falling into chaos." "That is unfortunate but temporary," Chen acknowledged. "The galaxy will adapt to new realities. It always has." "What new realities?" demanded the Botanical Coalition representative. Chen's slight smile was colder than interstellar space. "The reality that bullies will be met with overwhelming force. The reality that threatening innocent populations has consequences. The reality that mercy should not be mistaken for weakness." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "For too long, this galaxy has operated under the assumption that might makes right. That advanced species can dominate younger ones through threat and intimidation. The hegemony was just the largest example of this philosophy. You cannot possibly police the entire galaxy," protested the Mechanic Collective delegate. "We don't intend to," Chen replied. "We intend to provide an example that others can follow. When the next would-be conqueror looks at a peaceful species and considers issuing ultimatums, they will remember what happened to the hegemony. They will remember that some species do not submit to threats." The chamber erupted in shouting as delegates argued over the implications of Chen's words. Through the chaos, her voice cut clearly. "The Terran Federation wants nothing more than peaceful coexistence with all species. We will trade freely, share knowledge openly, and defend any world that asks for our protection. But we will never again submit to threats, and we will never allow bullies to terrorize the innocent." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Veltar spoke quietly into his communicator, then addressed the council one final time. "Honored delegates, I have just received word that the Hegemony High Council has voted to accept unconditional surrender. Our remaining military forces are standing down." He paused, looking around the chamber at faces filled with fear, confusion, and growing understanding. "Let this be a lesson to all of us. The humans are not like other species. They do not think like us, they do not fight like us, and they do not forgive like us. When they say no, they mean it. When they promise consequences, they deliver them." Veltar gathered his robes and began walking toward the exit. As he reached the chamber doors, he turned back one final time. "The age of the hegemony is over. The age of humanity has begun. I suggest you all learn to live with that reality." 3 months later, representatives from 18 species formally requested membership in the Terran Federation Defense Pact. Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the communication screen in her quarters aboard the UES Determination. 3 red dots blinked where green ones should have been. New Haven, Prosperity Station and Eden's Gate had all gone silent within the same 12-hour window. She rubbed her tired eyes and checked the time. It was late in the ship's night cycle, but sleep would not come. The colonies had missed their regular check-ins 2 days ago. Equipment failures happened, but not to 3 different worlds at the same time. Chen walked to the bridge. The night crew looked up as she entered. Lieutenant Commander Torres stood from the captain's chair. "Admiral, any new word from command?" Torres asked. "We're still going to investigate. All 3 sites." Chen moved to the main display. "How long until we reach New Haven?" 6 hours at current speed." Chen nodded. New Haven was the closest of the 3 colonies. It housed 200 researchers and their families. The people there studied plant life that could grow in different soil types. Simple work that helped feed growing human populations across the galaxy. The Determination was a mid-size exploration vessel. It carried enough weapons to handle pirates or small threats, but it was built for science missions and diplomacy. Chen had commanded it for 5 years. Most of their work involved checking on remote human settlements and keeping peace with alien neighbors. The galaxy had many different species. Most of them got along well enough. The Galactic Council made rules that everyone followed. Humans had joined the Council 40 years ago. Since then, Earth had worked hard to be good neighbors. Sometimes it was difficult. Other species often saw humans as weak because they avoided fights. When aliens took human trade routes, Earth complained through proper channels. When alien pirates attacked human ships, Earth asked the Council to handle it. When other species made jokes about human cowardice, Earth smiled and changed the subject. Chen understood the policy. Humans were still new to galactic society. They needed to prove they could be trusted. Starting wars would make other species afraid of them, but Chen had been in the military for 20 years. She remembered when humans fought each other before they reached the stars. She knew what her species could do when they had to fight. The galaxy had never seen that side of humanity. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "I'm picking up some strange readings from New Haven's direction." "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures that don't match their normal equipment. And there's debris in the system." Chen felt ice in her stomach. "How much debris?" "A lot, Admiral. It looks like a battle happened." The bridge went quiet. Chen walked to the communications station and looked at the readings herself. The debris pattern showed destroyed ships and buildings. "Too much destruction for an accident. Red alert," she ordered. "All hands to battle stations. Increase speed to maximum." The ship's alarm rang through the corridors. Chen heard running feet as the crew moved to their positions. The Determination had practiced these drills many times, but they had never been in a real fight. 2 hours later, they reached New Haven's star system. What they found made the entire crew go silent. Where New Haven colony should have been, only wreckage remained. The orbital platforms were destroyed. The research stations on the planet's surface were dark. No life signs showed on any scanner. "Take us into orbit," Chen ordered. "Launch survey drones. I want to know what happened here." The drones sent back images that made seasoned soldiers look away. The colony had not just been destroyed. Every building had been burned. Bodies lay in the streets, left where they had fallen. Men, women, and children who had never hurt anyone. But the worst part was what the attackers had left behind. Messages written in human blood on walls. Pictures of the dead arranged in specific patterns. Someone had wanted other humans to see this. Someone had wanted them to know it was done on purpose. "Admiral," the science officer said with a shaking voice. "The weapons used were Zephyrian design. Energy signatures matched their military equipment." Chen knew about the Zephyrians. They were an insect-like species that controlled a large empire. They had been expanding their territory for decades. The Council allowed it because the Zephyrians usually followed the rules. They conquered empty worlds or fought species that challenged them first. But humans had never challenged the Zephyrians. The colonies that were attacked had no weapons. They posed no threat to anyone. "Continue scanning. Record everything," Chen ordered. "We need to see the other colonies, too." Prosperity Station was 3 days away. When they arrived, they found the same scene. 250 miners and their families dead. The station's metal had been melted by energy weapons. Bodies were arranged in patterns that spelled out messages in Zephyrian language. Eden's Gate was the worst. 500 people had lived there, including 130 children. The attackers had taken their time. They had made the deaths slow. They had recorded everything and left the recordings for humans to find. Chen watched the recordings in her quarters. She had seen war before, but this was something else. This was not conquest or even revenge. This was a message written in human blood. The message was clear. Humans were weak, and the Zephyrians wanted everyone to know it. After 3 weeks of investigation, Chen had all the evidence she needed. The attacks were planned and coordinated. The Zephyrians had used their best military units. They had chosen human colonies because they knew humans would not fight back. The determination began the long journey back to Earth. Chen spent the time writing her report. She included every detail, every image, every piece of evidence. She wanted Earth's leaders to understand exactly what had happened. She also sent personal messages to her contacts in the military, old friends who had served with her before humans joined the galactic community. People who remembered what humans could do when they stopped being polite. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. It had watched humans for 40 years. It had seen them accept insults and avoid fights. It had decided that humans were a weak species that survived by being useful to stronger neighbors. The galaxy was about to learn it was wrong. Chen stood on the bridge as Earth grew larger on the screen. Home looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans and white clouds hiding the 5 billion people who lived there. Most of those people had never seen war. They had grown up believing that talking was better than fighting, but some of them remembered the old days. Some of them remembered when humans fought like demons because they had no choice. Those people were about to have their old jobs again. The Determination docked at Luna Station. Chen gathered her evidence and prepared to meet with Earth's leaders. She knew what she was going to tell them. She knew what they would decide. The galaxy had made a mistake. It had killed human children to prove a point about human weakness. Now it was going to learn about human strength. Chen walked through the station's corridors toward the transport that would take her to Earth. Behind her, the Determination's crew uploaded their records to the military networks. Soon, every human in the galaxy would know what had happened to New Haven, Prosperity Station, and Eden's Gate. Soon, humanity would remember how to make war. The age of human patience was ending. The age of human anger was about to begin. President Maria Martinez stood at the window of her office in Geneva, looking out at Lake Geneva. The water was calm, reflecting the morning sun. In a few hours, that calm would be broken forever. The emergency session of the United Earth Assembly was set to begin at noon. Representatives from every human world would attend, either in person or through quantum communication links. Admiral Chen's report had reached every corner of human space 3 days ago. Martinez had read the report 7 times. She had watched the recordings until she could not watch anymore. She had seen the pictures of children arranged like decorations for some alien art project. Each time, her anger grew colder and more focused. A knock came at her door. "Come in," she called. General Robert Kane entered, followed by Admiral Chen and Director Lisa Wong from Human Intelligence Services. They were the 3 people Martinez trusted most when it came to military matters. "Good morning, Madam President," Kane said. "Are you ready for this?" Martinez turned from the window. "Robert, I've been ready for this since I was 8 years old and learned what the hegemony did to the colony ships in 2387. Admiral Chen looked confused. "Madam President, the hegemony incident was before we joined the galactic community. Before the peace accords." "Exactly," Martinez said. "We've been playing nice for 40 years. We've let other species walk on us because we wanted to prove we could be civilized. Well, now we have our answer about how well that worked." She moved to her desk and picked up a data pad. "Lisa, tell me about our current military strength." Director Wong activated a holographic display. "Earth fleet has grown significantly since we joined the Council. We have 237 ships of various classes. 18 of those are Dreadnought-class vessels that other species don't know about." "Don't know about?" Chen asked. "We've been building them in the outer system shipyards," Kane explained, "far from the normal shipping lanes. The galaxy thinks we have an exploration and defense fleet. They don't know we've been preparing for war this whole time." Martinez nodded. "What about our allies?" "The Centauri colonies will follow Earth's lead," Wong said. "They've lost people to Zephyrian raids too. The Tau Ceti Federation is officially neutral, but their intelligence service has been sharing information with us for years. They'll help quietly, and the other species. Most of them will stay out of it," Wong continued. "They're afraid of the Zephyrians, but they're also afraid of what happens if humans start acting like a military power. Some of the smaller species might support us secretly. Kane stepped forward. Madam President, there's something else you need to know. We've been monitoring Zephyrian communications since the attacks. They're planning more raids. They want to hit 10 more human colonies in the next 6 months. Martinez felt her hands clench into fists. They think we won't fight back. They think we can't fight back, Chen corrected. Their intelligence reports describe humans as a docile species useful for labor and scientific research. They believe our military exists only to fight pirates and maintain order. Show them the real files, Martinez ordered. Wang touched her datapad. The holographic display changed to show technical specifications for human weapons and ships, energy readings that were far beyond what Earth had revealed to the galactic community. Ship designs that looked more like flying fortresses than exploration vessels. Admiral Chen, Martinez said, what happened to your colonies was not war, it was extermination. They killed researchers and children to send a message about human weakness. They made recordings to humiliate us, yes. Madam President, they chose to do this because they thought we would file a complaint with the Galactic Council and ask for justice through proper channels, and that's what our previous responses would suggest, Kane said. Martinez walked back to the window. The lake was still calm, but now she could see people walking along the shore. Humans going about their normal lives, people who deserve to live without fear of alien monsters killing their children. Madam President, Wang said quietly, if we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. Good, Martinez replied. I'm tired of being seen as weak. She turned back to face them. General Kane, I want you to prepare Operation Righteous Fury. All of it. Every plan we've made for the last 20 years. Kane's eyes went wide. All of it, Madam President? Even the orbital bombardment protocols? All of it. I want the Zephyrians to understand that they made a mistake. I want every species in the galaxy to understand that attacking human civilians is not acceptable. The casualty estimates for full implementation are... Kane started. Are what they are. Martinez interrupted. The Zephyrians chose this path when they decided to murder our children. We're just going to walk down it with them. Chen looked concerned. Madam President, what about the Galactic Council? They'll try to stop us. Let them try, Martinez said. Admiral, you've seen what the Zephyrians did. You've seen how they arranged the bodies. You've seen how they made sure we would find the recordings. Do you think the Council will give us justice? Chen was quiet for a moment. No, Madam President. The Council will ask for investigations and committees and years of discussion, while the Zephyrians kill more of our people. Exactly. So we'll get our own justice. Wang activated another display. Madam President, we should discuss the diplomatic consequences. Several species have trade agreements with the Zephyrians. They might see our response as an attack on the galactic order. Then they should have thought about that before they stood by and let genocide happen, Martinez said. Lisa, I want a list of every species that has supported Zephyrian expansion in the last 10 years. Every government that sold them weapons. Every corporation that gave them supplies. What do you plan to do with that list? I plan to make sure they understand their choices have consequences. Kane activated his communicator. Colonel Harrison, please report to the President's office immediately. A few minutes later, Colonel James Harrison entered. He was the head of Human Special Operations, the unit that handled the missions other people were not supposed to know about. Colonel, Martinez said, I need you to send a message to every human intelligence operative in Zephyrian space. Tell them to go active. All operations are approved. Harrison's face did not change expression, but his voice was careful. Madam President, some of those operations have been in planning for decades. The authorization codes haven't been used since the colony wars. Use them now. Ma'am, once those operations begin, there will be no hiding what we're capable of. The galaxy will see a side of humanity that we've kept secret since we joined the galactic community. Martinez walked to her desk and picked up a photograph. It showed her as a young girl with her parents on New Meridia colony. Pirates had destroyed that colony when she was 12. The galactic community had offered sympathy and investigation committees. Her parents died waiting for justice. Colonel, 40 years ago we decided to be the good neighbors. We decided to prove that humans could be civilized and peaceful. We've spent 4 decades showing the galaxy our best face. She put the photograph down and looked at each of them in turn. The Zephyrians just decided that our best face wasn't good enough, so now they get to see our other face. The one we used before we learned to be polite. Martinez walked to her wall safe and entered a long code. Inside was a red datapad that she had hoped never to use. She handed it to Kane. General, at noon I'm going to address the assembly. I'm going to show them what the Zephyrians did to our people. Then I'm going to ask for a declaration of war. Kane looked at the datapad. And if they vote yes? Then you activate every protocol on that pad. You unleash every weapon we've built. You deploy every soldier we've trained. You show the galaxy what humans look like when we stop pretending to be harmless. She moved back to the window. The lake was no longer calm. Wind had started to blow across the surface, creating small waves that caught the sunlight. Gentleman Admiral Chen, the age of human patience is over. The Zephyrians wanted to see how far they could push us. Today, they get their answer. The meeting ended. Her advisors left to prepare for war. Martinez stood alone in her office, looking out at the water and thinking about the children who would never grow up because aliens thought humans were weak. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn how wrong they were. Ambassador Quindal of the Hegemony Coalition paced nervously in his private chambers aboard the diplomatic station orbiting Nexus Prime. The reports coming in from Zephyrian space grew worse by the hour. The humans had not simply defeated the Zephyrian fleet. They had systematically dismantled the entire empire in less than 2 weeks. Military bases vanished overnight. Supply depots were reduced to atoms. Entire defensive fleets were captured intact without firing a shot. But the most disturbing reports were not about the military targets. Human forces had also seized every Zephyrian government database, every intelligence archive, every communication record. They were methodically reviewing 40 years of Zephyrian foreign policy, and they were finding very interesting connections. Quindal's communicator chimed. Ambassador, you have an incoming transmission from Admiral Chen. His blood went cold. Put it through. The holographic display activated, showing the human admiral standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a Zephyrian dreadnought. Behind her, Quindal could see human technicians working alongside Zephyrian prisoners to operate the ship's systems. Ambassador Quindal, Admiral Chen said with a slight smile, thank you for taking my call. Admiral Chen, I congratulate you on your victory over the Zephyrians. The Coalition hopes that Earth will now return to peaceful diplomatic relations. Oh, we're just getting started, Ambassador. In fact, that's why I wanted to speak with you. Chen gestured, and the display changed to show documents written in Hegemony script. We've been reviewing Zephyrian intelligence files. Very thorough record keepers, the Zephyrians. They documented every weapon sale, every intelligence briefing, every diplomatic agreement. Quindal tried to keep his expression neutral, but his hearts were racing. The Coalition had provided support to Zephyrian expansion for decades. It had been profitable and strategically useful to have the Zephyrians handle the difficult species, while the Coalition focused on trade. Admiral, I'm sure there are reasonable explanations for any historical agreements between our peoples. I'm sure there are, Ambassador. For instance, this document shows that the Coalition provided the Zephyrians with detailed intelligence about human colony locations, defensive capabilities, and population centers. The blood drained from Quindal's face. Those intelligence reports had been classified at the highest levels. The Coalition leadership had assumed they would never be discovered. This document shows payment records for weapons shipments to Zephyrian military forces, specifically the energy weapons used to destroy New Haven, Prosperity Station, and Eden's Gate. Chen turned the datapad toward the camera. Your government sold them the guns they used to murder our children, Ambassador. Admiral, those were standard commercial transactions. We had no knowledge of how those weapons would be used. Really? Because this communication shows Coalition intelligence officers briefing Zephyrian commanders about human psychological profiles. It specifically recommends targeting civilian populations to demoralize the passive human leadership. Quindal's mind raced. He needed to contact the Coalition leadership immediately. They needed to prepare their defenses, activate their own military forces, call in favors from other species. Ambassador, Chen continued, you look nervous. Is there something wrong? Admiral, I think there has been a misunderstanding. The Coalition has always maintained friendly relations with Earth. Yes, you have. Very friendly. So friendly that you helped plan the extermination of human colonies while smiling at our diplomats. The display changed again, showing real-time images of Coalition space. Human ships were visible near every major Coalition world. just as they had been positioned near Zephyrian targets. Ambassador, the coalition government has 48 hours to surrender every official who participated in the planning or support of attacks against human civilians. You will also transfer complete records of all transactions with the Zephyrian Empire. And if we refuse, Chen's smile disappeared, then we will take those records ourselves along with everything else. The transmission ended. Quindal immediately activated his emergency communicator to contact Coalition Command. This is Ambassador Quindal. I need to speak with the High Council immediately. Priority Alpha. Ambassador, the High Council is already in emergency session. Please hold. While he waited, Quindal reviewed the reports from other species. The story was the same everywhere. Human intelligence agents had infiltrated dozens of governments over the past 40 years. They had been quietly gathering information, making connections, preparing for a day that everyone hoped would never come. That day had arrived. Ambassador Quindal, came the voice of High Counselor Murthon. We've been monitoring the situation. What is the human position? Complete surrender or total war, High Counselor. They have documentation of our support for Zephyrian operations. They know everything. How much do they know? Everything, sir. Weapons sales, intelligence sharing, strategic planning. They have 40 years of classified communications. The line was quiet for several moments. Then Murthon spoke again, his voice tired and old. Ambassador, the humans have sent similar ultimatums to 17 different species. The Corvan Empire received demands for surrender 6 hours ago. The Nexus Trade Federation got theirs this morning. What are the others doing? The Corvans are mobilizing their fleet. They believe they can match human military capabilities. And the Trade Federation? They surrendered immediately. Their leadership decided that survival was more important than pride. Quindal understood the choice. The Corvans were a warrior culture that would rather die fighting than submit to another species. The Trade Federation were merchants who calculated profit and loss in everything, including wars. High Counselor, what are our orders? Stand by, Ambassador. We're trying to contact other species to form a defensive alliance. If enough of us stand together, perhaps we can negotiate a reasonable settlement. But even as he said it, Murthon knew it was probably too late for negotiations. The humans had spent 40 years being reasonable. They had been patient while other species tested their limits. They had absorbed insults and violations because they wanted to be seen as civilized. The galaxy had mistaken that patience for weakness. Now they were learning the difference between choosing not to fight and being unable to fight. 3 hours later, Quindal received another call from Coalition Command. Ambassador, the Corvan fleet engaged human forces 30 minutes ago. What happened? The engagement lasted 17 minutes. The Corvans lost their entire battle fleet. The humans captured 200 ships without suffering a single casualty. Quindal felt sick. The Corvan fleet was considered one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. If the humans could destroy it that easily, no species was safe. High Counselor, are we going to surrender? We're going to try something else first. We're calling an emergency session of the Galactic Council. We're going to argue that human actions violate galactic law and demand intervention from neutral species. Sir, the humans withdrew from the Council. They don't recognize its authority anymore. Then we'll have to make them recognize it. But Quindal knew that plan would fail too. The humans had tried working within the galactic system for 40 years. They had filed complaints, requested investigations, and followed proper procedures while their people were murdered. The system had failed them. Now they were creating their own system. Over the next 24 hours, the cascade accelerated. Species after species received demands for surrender and reparations. Some, like the Trade Federation, immediately complied. Others, like the Corvans, chose to fight and were quickly defeated. A few tried to remain neutral, claiming they had no involvement in Zephyrian operations. The humans responded by releasing intelligence files showing exactly which species had helped and which had simply looked the other way. Looking the other way, it turned out, was also considered a crime by human standards. The Galactic Council held its emergency session with only half its members present. The other half were either under human occupation or fleeing to distant sectors of space. Council Speaker Veltash called the session to order with a trembling voice. The Council will now address the human violations of galactic law and the threat to interstellar stability. But before he could continue, the chamber's main display activated. Admiral Chen appeared, broadcasting from the bridge of her flagship.
Honored council members, she said with obvious irony, I understand you wish to discuss human actions. I'm here to save you some time. Admiral Chen, Speaker Veltash replied, you are in violation of numerous galactic treaties. We demand that you cease hostilities immediately. Speaker Veltash, 40 years ago humanity joined this council because we believed in the idea of civilized cooperation between species. We believed that together we could create a galaxy where conflicts were resolved through law rather than force. Chen paused, looking directly at the camera. We were wrong. This council allowed genocide to happen because it was politically convenient. You sat in your chambers and debated while our children were murdered for entertainment. Admiral, the proper procedures failed, Speaker. So now we're using improper procedures. We're solving the problem ourselves. The transmission ended. 6 hours later, the Galactic Council building was empty. The rebuilt Galactic Council chamber looked much different than it had 6 months ago. The circular hall that once held representatives from 47 species now accommodated only 23. The missing species had either been dissolved as political entities or had chosen exile beyond the reach of human space. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the podium where Speaker Veltash had once presided. Behind her sat President Martinez and the new Human Council that would oversee galactic governance. Around the chamber, representatives from the surviving species waited to hear humanity's final terms for peace. Chen looked out at the assembled delegates. Some faces showed fear. Others showed resignation. A few showed something that might have been relief. 6 months ago, Chen began, this chamber witnessed the greatest failure in galactic history. While human colonies were being exterminated, this council debated procedure. While our children were being murdered for entertainment, you argued about jurisdiction. She activated the chamber's main display, showing images from New Haven, Prosperity Station, and Eden's Gate. The Zephyrian Empire committed genocide. 17 species provided direct support for those operations. 24 others provided indirect assistance or turned away when they could have intervened. 6 species actively worked to cover up the crimes. The images changed to show the current map of galactic space. Large sections were now marked with the blue and white symbol of human administration. Today, the Zephyrian Empire no longer exists. Their military has been disbanded. Their government has been dissolved. Their population has been relocated to supervised worlds where they will learn to coexist peacefully with other species. Ambassador Tekel of the Nexus Trade Federation raised a trembling hand. Admiral Chen, what about the species that surrendered immediately? Those who cooperated with human investigations? Ambassador Tekel, your government surrendered within hours of receiving our demands. You provided complete records of your transactions with the Zephyrians. You assisted our investigators in tracking down war criminals. Chen consulted her datapad. The Trade Federation will retain autonomy over internal affairs. Your trade routes will be restored under human oversight. Your military will be limited to defensive forces only. And the coalition? Asked the representative from a small mining world that had once been under coalition control. The hegemony coalition government has been dissolved. Their military leaders are currently on trial for war crimes. Their member worlds have been given the choice of joining the new Galactic Compact or establishing independent governments under human protection. President Martinez stood and walked to the podium. Chen stepped aside, yielding the floor to Earth's leader. Representatives, we did not want this responsibility, Martinez said. For 40 years we tried to work within the existing system. We believed that civilized species could govern themselves through cooperation and mutual respect. She gestured to the empty seats where vanished species had once sat. We were wrong. When the test came, when genocide was committed in full view of the galactic community, the system failed completely. You failed completely. The chamber was silent except for the soft humming of life support systems. So now humanity will take responsibility for maintaining galactic peace. We will enforce the laws that you were too weak or too corrupt to enforce yourselves, Martinez activated another display showing the structure of the new galactic government. The Galactic Compact for Sentient Rights establishes basic protections that cannot be violated under any circumstances. No species may commit genocide. No government may enslave sentient beings. No military may target civilian populations. Who will enforce these laws? Asked Representative Morden of the Centauri Collective. We will, Martinez replied simply. Earth Fleet will maintain peacekeeping forces throughout galactic space.
Human courts will try violations of the compact. Human administrators will oversee compliance. Ambassador Krelnock from the Outer Rim Confederacy stood up. President Martinez, you're talking about human domination of the entire galaxy. How is this different from the empire building that other species have attempted? Martinez turned to face him directly. Ambassador, when the Zephyrians built their empire, they did it through conquest and extermination. When the coalition expanded, they did it through economic manipulation and political pressure. She paused, letting her words settle. When humanity takes control, we do it to prevent genocide. We do it to protect species that cannot protect themselves. We do it because someone has to and no one else was willing to do the job. But who watches the watchers? Krelnock pressed. What prevents humanity from becoming the next oppressor? Admiral Chen stepped forward again. Ambassador, that's an excellent question. The answer is simple. We watch ourselves. She activated a new display showing the organizational structure of human oversight. Every human administrator reports to multiple supervisors. Every military commander has civilian oversight. Every court decision is subject to review. We have built checks and balances into our system because we know what happens when power goes unchecked. More importantly, President Martinez added, we remember what we were like before we learned to control ourselves. We spent 300 years fighting wars on our own planet. We know exactly how destructive an intelligent species can become when it chooses violence over cooperation. The display changed to show historical images from Earth, ancient battles, medieval sieges, industrial wars, and finally the devastation that had nearly destroyed human civilization before they reached the stars. We learned to be better than we were, Ambassador. We learned to choose peace over war, cooperation over domination, protection over exploitation, but we never forgot the lessons of our violent past. Martinez walked closer to the assembled representatives. The galaxy made a mistake when it decided that human patience meant human weakness. You confused our choice to be civilized with an inability to be dangerous. You forgot that the most dangerous predator is the one that has learned to control its instincts. She returned to the podium and activated one final display. It showed the new boundaries of human-controlled space, encompassing nearly 60% of the galaxy. This is not an empire, representatives. This is a protective zone. Every species within these boundaries will be safe from genocide, slavery, and oppression. In return, they will follow the laws of the Galactic Compact and contribute to the maintenance of galactic peace. What about species outside the protective zone? Asked Ambassador Quindal, who had been released from prison to represent the former coalition worlds. They are free to govern themselves however they choose, Admiral Chen replied. As long as they do not threaten species under human protection, we will not interfere with their internal affairs. And if they do threaten protected species? Chen's expression grew cold. Then they will learn why the Zephyrian Empire no longer exists. President Martinez raised her hand, calling for attention. Representatives, I want to be very clear about something. We did not choose this role. It was forced upon us by the failures of the old system. We would have preferred to remain junior partners in a truly just galactic community. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with each representative. But that community proved to be an illusion. When the crisis came, when our people were being murdered, you chose politics over justice. You chose convenience over moral responsibility. So now we choose for you. We choose justice over politics. We choose protection over convenience. We choose to be the watchers because no one else was willing to watch. The voting on the Galactic Compact was scheduled for the next day, but everyone in the chamber knew the outcome. The surviving species would vote to accept human leadership because the alternative was exile from galactic civilization. As the session ended, Admiral Chen remained at the podium while the representatives filed out. President Martinez joined her, and together they looked out at the mostly empty chamber. Do you think we're doing the right thing, Sarah? Martinez asked quietly. I think we're doing the necessary thing, Madam President. Whether it's right or wrong, history will judge. And if history judges us harshly, Chen thought about the images from the destroyed colonies. She thought about the children who would never grow up. She thought about the species that would live safely because humanity had chosen to be strong instead of patient. Then at least no more children will die while we debate proper procedures. Martinez nodded. Admiral, implement the final phase of Operation Righteous Fury. I want human peacekeeping forces deployed to every system within our protective zone within 30 days. Yes, Madam President. And the memorial gardens? Build them exactly as planned. On every world where humans died, we'll create gardens where all species can remember the cost of allowing evil to flourish. As they left the chamber, Chen thought about the galaxy they were creating. It would be safer than the old one. It would be more just than the old one. It would be protected by a species that had learned the difference between strength and cruelty, between justice and revenge. The Zephyrians had wanted to test human resolve. They had gotten their answer, but not the one they expected. Instead of finding weakness, they had awakened a sleeping guardian that would never allow genocide to happen again.